So hi, my name's Lauren. I'm going to walk you through some stuff today. I wrote it on the board. First thing I'm going to talk about, and I'm sorry if this is a little bit of a review or if you already knew this, but I don't know everyone's skill level. So the first thing I want to talk about is the File Explorer. In Mac, that's your Finder. So File Explorer, Finder. It's basically how you're going to navigate around. The second thing you'll see is under this PC is your C drive. That's going to be equivalent to Macintosh HD on your MacBook. And the third thing is here in this Start menu. These are your programs. Also in your C drive, you will see program files. That's equivalent to just the applications section on your MacBook. Next thing I'm going to talk about is the Start menu. Start menu right here is the Windows flag. That's where all your programs are, like I showed you before. There's also a button on your screen that looks like a grid on the bottom left. That also will launch the Start menu for you. Over here, you can pin frequently used apps there so you don't have to look for them. It's really easy. It's just a right click. And you can pin to start, unpin to start. For example, I don't want Xbox. I'll right click, unpin to start. No, I don't have to look at it. I can put something else more important that I may want there. When you open a program, for example, a calculator, it shows up down here. This is your taskbar. It's similar to your Mac dock. Like your Mac dock, you can pin something to it. Again, that's just a right click. And now it will stay there even when I close it. Anything you open will be in your taskbar, everything you open will be in your taskbar. The last section we have is the tray. That's this area right down here, all in here. That's similar to the Mac menu bar, on the top right of your Mac that has your battery life, your volume. The same type of information is found there. As far as buttons go, typically your control button, that bottom left corner, is the same as your Apple or Command button on your Mac. So if you want to copy something, instead of Command C, it's Control C. Paste, instead of Command V, it'll be Control V. The other frequently used thing is in Macworld, you do the Command I to get information on something. What you would do in this case is right click and go to Properties. So that's the same information you would get on a Mac with your Command I. In Mac, you guys have the activity monitor. In PC land, it's the task manager. There are two easy ways to get to your task manager. You can either do Control, Alt, and Delete on your screen, which will pop up a blue screen that gives you the option to select Task Manager. The other option would be right here to right-click in your taskbar, and you can go to Task Manager that way, just to see what's running on your machine. Right now I have Camtasia going, the Task Manager, and you guys saw the Explorer. In Mac, if you have a program freeze and you can't exit it, typically what you do is the Command Option Escape. In PC, what you're going to want to do is Alt F4. That will be that instant quit. All right, well then I'm going to go on to some kind of frequently used things you'll do. Locking your computer. There are two ways to lock your computer if you're stepping away from it and you're still in the classroom and you don't want, a student to mess with it. First is Start menu, and you click on this little person icon, and you can lock computer. The other option would be to hold down the Windows key and press L. And of course, then when you'll come back to your computer, you'll want to log back in. The next is perhaps you want to set a default program to open a certain type of file. So, for example, in this one, I'm going to right-click on it. It's just a normal image file. Right-click on it. I'm going to go to Open With and choose another app. And that's going to give me a pop-up here where I can say, I always want my images to open with Paint, and click, always use this app to open PNG files. When I click OK, from now on, that will always open in Paint. Next thing is like a split screen. What you can do is if you want to kind of dock a program or a file you have open on one side of the screen or the other, if you hold the Windows key and either the right or left button, it'll pop it from side to side, which is kind of nice. So that's just Windows and either right or left key. The other thing you can do, I'm going to open a couple things up here, is if you want to go between programs quickly, it is, I believe it is Alt-Tab, will let you tab through what you have open. So if you're running with a bunch of programs and you can't quite find what you're looking for, that's how you do it. This machine also has a front and back facing camera, which I find is really nice for filming reference. All I do is search for camera. It's super easy to use, the front face. Up here, there's a rotate button. You kind of go back and forth. And your files from this, once you take photos, are going to be stored in your C. And then just like in Math, you have a users folder with your username, pictures, and then right here in camera roll. So if you don't know where that was, it's up here. You'll always be able to see, like on the Mac, it's usually down here in your Finder window. In PC, up here, you can see where you've navigated to. So see, users, your username, pictures. All right, then the next thing I'll go over is the touchpad. To get to it, I just search for touchpad settings. These are pretty straightforward. Leave a touchpad on when the mouse is connected, obviously gives you both options, so you can use a mouse or a touchpad or together. Your touchpad sensitivity, I think the medium one's pretty good, but if you find that, you know, it's too sensitive, obviously you can drop down and change it. These are also kind of personalized settings. I like using the lower right corner to right click. However, if you're more comfortable, like on a Mac, doing a control click, you can disable that if you want. Yeah, down here near the bottom, they will show you the 3 and 4 finger gestures you can use. Multitasking view, what it does is it shows you everything that's currently open. And the show desktop minimizes everything to your desktop. So if you're using these and you're a little confused about what they mean, you forget, there is a video on this page right here that you can expand. There's no audio. We also may be still experiencing internet outages. But that video will walk you through what all the touchpad gestures mean if you're confused. If you're a super user and you want to set them up to be different, you absolutely can down here in Advanced Gesture Configuration. There are a bunch of preset ones that you can go through and set up whatever you'd like. I'd kind of play around with it, check out what's there, see what makes sense to you. You know, do you use multiple desktops? Personally, I don't, so I'm never going to set that. But yeah, you'll see if you're into video a lot, obviously play pause might be something helpful if you're editing video. It's pretty straightforward. All right, well then next I'm going to go over the pen tool. So a quick shortcut here is if I open Windows and I click on any letter, it pulls up all the letters. And I know I want to go to HP, so I clicked H and it kind of takes me right there, which is nice. So I'm going to open the Create Control Panel. This is where a lot of the like HP specific settings are with your pen and your button. So first thing I'm going to go over is the pen tool. Calibrate will do just what it sounds like. It'll calibrate your pen to your screen. So So if you go to that, it'll just have you touch the center of the crosshair to make sure everything's lined up. So if you find that your drawing and your line isn't quite lining up in Photoshop or Illustrator, you'll want to do a quick calibration. The eraser is an eraser for most of your tools. I leave it there, but you could make it a whole sorts of things if you want. If you want to set it to right click, it's all in here, or a specific keyboard shortcut, nice and easy. You can adjust your pressure. I'm a heavy presser, so I set mine more firm. Here we go. So you can see that's like my normal touch. If you're really into it, you can kind of customize the pressure curve, but that's more than I ever need, so I stay away from there. The pen itself works the same here. There's that pressure tool, and I usually go a little more firm. Double click distance. So if you find that you're stippling and it keeps trying to double click, you can turn it to a larger distance so it will read the difference between a stipple and an actual double click. The cool thing, I think, is actually the button on it. The button on the side you can set to be all sorts of things. I actually like to set it personally to something called a radial menu. Basically, what it does is there are a set of predetermined buttons on this, or items in a radial menu. And if I click on this, it pops it up. So all this is me clicking my button on my mouse. I can drag it around to the corner or wherever I want it, and then pin it right here. So if I want to open File Explorer, there it is. If I want to show my desktop, all I have to do, and you can edit that radial menu for any program you want, which is pretty neat. So say I wanted to set it to something specific for Photoshop. I'm going to go into Functions and Radial Menu, and I'm going to use this plus arrow to create a new radial menu. I'm going to call this one Photoshop. And I can say I want a keystroke for, let's say, B for my brush, and then I want a keystroke for, let's say, E for my eraser, and then I could even do a keystroke for Control S, just for save. Now I go back into my pen, and I say, I want to set up something specific. So there's a little plus sign here next to Applications, and I'm going to search for Photoshop. Now that I'm selected on Photoshop, I can pick my button and go to Radial Menu, the one I set up for Photoshop. So note, while I'm out here, not in Photoshop, these are the basic default settings. But if I open up Photoshop, and sorry, it'll take a second, you'll see that I have my whole new menu that is just Photoshop specific, which I find to be really helpful. New document, okay. So if I click and put my radial menu up, I'm going to pin it here. I can go to my brush tool and start drawing, go to my eraser tool, erase, and then save my art just by clicking. And I don't have to go and find those tools. I think this is pretty helpful because I like to work with my keyboard and my desktop separate so that I'm not over myself drawing. So if I don't remember if there's a hotkey I never remember, I just put it in my radial menu, and then it's right there, easy access. The other function I wanted to talk about is the quick keys. So the quick keys are the buttons on the side here. You can also program them very easily. They have a bunch of default ones here, and you'll see these modes on the top, mode 1, mode 2, mode 3. Mode is going to be right here, the third button down on your right, If you press that, you'll notice above the buttons, you have 3 different lights that light up. So those are different modes. So if you look back on the screen, I can toggle between modes. So at mode 1, the highest position, my top button switches virtual desktop. At second mode, which would be hitting the button a second time, it would snap window right. And if I hit that mode button one more time, I'd be at mode 3 to show desktop. So if you're a super user and you're really into just working in tablet mode, you can very quickly swap between things. There are people who are really into this who can just kind of go once they get the hang of it. So if you wanted to program these per app, you can do that too. So for example, let's say I'm going into Chrome. So I'm navigated to Chrome here, and I'm going to set my buttons up for Chrome. So this first button here, I'm going to change, just as an example, I'm going to do a keystroke again, and let's do Control-T for new tab. And then underneath it, I'll do another keystroke, and let's do, I think it's Control-Shift-T, which will open closed tab. Now, as soon as I open up Chrome, if I can open Chrome, there we go, too many Chromes. If I click the top button that I set, it opens new tabs. So I load Google, I'm going to close it. That second button I set to reopen a closed tab. There it is. So yeah, just like the pen button, you can set these buttons to work in any program any way you want, which is incredibly powerful.
Now that you've got all your buttons and pen settings the way you want them, can you save those settings?
So we're going to go back to HP, create control panel, but instead of clicking on the panel, Chris pointed to the preferences. The backup would be save. Yep, and then restore would be to save or to reload from a backup, and remove would be if you wanted to do factory reset. Well, that's actually about all I have for today.